Hello! The myths and legends of ancient Greece tell in detail about the invincible Hercules and his deeds. But what if the well-known story could be told in a more realistic way? On a thunderous night, the son of the god Zeus and the woman Alcmena is born amidst flashes of lightning. His mother named him Hercules, which means Hera's glory, to appease the jealous wife of the king of Olympus. Hera takes the boy's birth as an insult and tries to kill him. Two snakes crawl out of the goddess statue's eyes and make their way to the child's cradle. But young Hercules, who has inherited his father's divine power, breaks the reptiles' necks. As he grows up, Hercules performs his famous 12 feats, after which the vindictive stepmother goddess promises him peace. He makes his way through the swamp to fight the Lernaean Hydra, cutting off its heads one by one. Then he overtakes the Erymanthian boar, slaying it with his club. But the greatest feat of all was killing the Lemene lion, a beast whose hide was so tough that no weapon could pierce it.
But even this monster was no match for the son of Zeus.
It turns out that the man who tells this legend is bound and strung up. The pirates are threatening to kill him. His name is Iolaus, and he is the nephew of the protagonist of this story. The leader of the bandits does not believe a word of it and starts burning the rope that the guy is being held on. Behind the captain's back appears Hercules himself in the skin of the Nemean lion and boasts that he has killed the beast with his bare hands. At least that's what the legend says. Hercules repels the first attack of the 5 robbers with a single blow, but hides behind the corner from the others, revealing that he has not arrived alone, but with backup. The clever thief Autolycus, the Amazon archer Atalanta, the seer Amphiaraus, and the fierce Titus. With their help, Hercules saves his nephew from torture and knocks out the pirate captain with a club blow. After the battle, Autolycus estimates the amount of gold they will be given for the dead, and Iolaus says that his tale of Hercules has made the enemies panic. And it turns out that all these legends are just cunning tactics.
The more they believe Hercules is truly the son of Zeus, less likely they are to fight.
Amphiaraus tells of his vision, where a lion and a crow in a strange alliance fight across a sea of corpses. His friends do not take him seriously and go to the tavern to replenish their strength. While Hercules contemplates ending his career in seclusion by the sea, a woman named Erginia, daughter of Codys, appears in a room and asks Hercules to help protect the kingdom of Thrace from an attack by barbarians, led by the cruel Rhesus. As a reward, they will receive as much gold as the hero weighs. On the shields of the Thracians is a raven, just like in the vision of the seer. Autolycus nudges Hercules with a plate of food and tells him to finish to the last spoonful. The team arrives at the palace, in front of which stands a huge statue of the patroness of Thrace, Hera, the same goddess who so many times wished the hero dead. Erginia remarks that the goddess can let go of old grudges if Hercules fulfills his task. The girl's son, Ares, runs up to the hero, eager to meet his idol. He knows all about his 12 feats, but his mother drives him away, saying that such people are dangerous and attract violence. General Sitalces accompanies the guest to meet the king. Hercules recalls another king, Eurystheus, to whom he gave the heads of the Lernaean Hydra with triumph.
The masks of serpents. No wonder men thought they were monsters.
Turns out they were just people in costumes. Just another tale to sell to commoners. It is there that Hercules is reunited with his wife, Megara, and their 3 children. But the happy memory ends in a nightmare. Hercules hears his loved one screaming and blood splashing on the walls. Hercules appears before Codys. The king of Thracians is surprised that the demigod needs the help of a team, and seeing an Amazon, says that there is no place for a woman in this mission. Atalanta immediately proves him wrong by performing an accurate bow shot with 2 arrows at once. And the army Rheus fight real monsters, centaurs, who inflicted a crushing defeat on the troops of the king. Hercules must train the hastily assembled army to replace the fallen soldiers. It is no secret to kings that the image and reputation of rules is more important to the people than their actual deeds. Thus, Hercules is summoned to give the people faith in victory. The arrogant team is already mentally dividing their rewards and figuring out how best to call the next feat. The training of the troops begins, and Hercules declares that the most important thing in war is not to kill, but to survive. The warriors take their shields and stand in formation to defend themselves, but they cannot hold back even Titus alone, who bursts in and easily breaks their formation. Hercules skillfully instructs and boosts the morale of the fighters. Meanwhile, a scout reports that Rheus' troops, enchanted and strengthened by his spells, are swiftly approaching one of the kingdom's villages. Hercules tries to dissuade Codys from attacking with an untrained army, but the king does not listen and gives the orders to march on. At night, the king's grandson Ares walks alone in the darkness and finds Titus, chained and making strange noises. Hercules turns up beside him and explains to the frightened boy that he picked up the orphan in Thebes during a terrible war. The mute boy lived there alone like an animal.
He never speaks of what he saw. He never speaks at all.
Arius admires Hercules, but the man is already burdened by the glory and exaggeration of his deeds. He takes the child to his mother and gives the boy the tooth of the Nemean lion, delighting him. The next morning, Hercules takes charge of the army. Iolaus furtively tries to join the line of soldiers, but Hercules finds him and does not allow him to fight. Upon arrival at their destination, countless bodies, including civilians and children, are lying all over the place. Hercules reports that judging by the condition of the bodies, they have been there for at least a week. They find several fresh bodies, which turns out to be the savages who have set up a trap for them. The soldiers form a square, protecting the king with their shields, and Hercules is challenged to a duel by the champion of the savages. The hero stealthily breaks off the tip of Atalata's arrow and pierces his opponent's skull with it in one blow. The warriors regard this as a display of divine power. The Thracians try to hold the line, protecting Iolaus and Cotys from the crowd of enemies, while Hercules and his team stay on the outside. Atalanta pierces the enemy with her bow, Titus spins like a hurricane, Amphiaraus chops foes with his double-edged spear, and Autolycus is masterful with his blades in both close and long-range combat. Hercules' club and blows scatter his enemies as if he truly were a demigod, but it is still not enough. And when it seems that the savages are about to win and get to the king, Hercules and Amphiaraus ride their chariots into the crowd and cut their heads off, using their advantage. Victory is achieved at great cost, and the soldiers mourn the fallen, while Iolaus covers Hercules' wounds so that the soldiers won't notice that he is bleeding like a mortal. The hero criticizes the king for his rash campaign, and the general wants to execute the scout for leading them into a trap, but Autolycus stops him and takes command of scouting. Erginia treats Hercules' wounds, and they talk about family. Her husband died before their son was born. Hercules, in turn, dodges the subject and grows gloomy. He has a nightmare. He sees his wife dead, and his own hands covered in blood.
How could you do such a terrible thing? By law, I should execute you.
But Eurystheus had a different punishment for him, sending him into eternal exile from Athens, in which Hercules will continue to blame himself every day for the deaths of his loved ones. The hero wakes up terrified, but after leaving the house, finds himself in a nightmare again, where he encounters Cerberus, a three-headed dog, among the corpses. He is pulled out by the series of dreams by Titus, who puts his hands on his friend's shoulder. Amphiaraus also notices Hercules' suffering and tells him that this main feat will be a battle with the beast within, from which there is no escape. At this time, Erginia finds Hercules' friends and asks Iolaus to tell her about the truth about what happened to the hero's family. The boy begins to say that it happened because Hera drove him mad, but Erginia dismisses this as a myth. Autolycus replies that there is no way of knowing the truth, for there were no witnesses, and Hercules himself remembers nothing. The two of them survived on the streets of Athens as orphans, and then went into the army, where Hercules was always given the most difficult tasks from the kings themselves, and Autolycus helped him. Their success was indeed impressive, and people began to make up myths of them. All that was left was to play along. Gradually, the team grew, and each of them had a reason to trust their friend for his kindness to them. As for family, Hercules asked Atalanta to see to it that in case of another blood rage, she would finish him off before he hurt anyone. The training of the armies continues, but as they get to know the heroes better, Sitacles and the Thracians begin to notice inconsistencies in Iolaus' tale. Amphiaraus says that the gods have given him a sign that he will die in 7 days in a place very similar to Hades, and Titus is no longer able to break through the ranks of the well-trained soldiers. Hercules leads the soldiers to Mount Asticus, where they see something similar to centaurs in the distance. They draw closer, and it turns out to just be men on horseback. At the head of the horsemen is Rheus himself.
Hercules, your legend ends here.
Next to the commander is the same scout trader who was saved by Autolycus. The battle begins. The Thracians hold the line perfectly, and Atalanta and the other archers and chariots hit the enemy army with a surprise attack from the flank. The hero's team keeps up as well and fights in the midst of the crowd of enemies. Rheus' archers respond with a volley of flaming arrows that cover the sky. Amphiaraus, thinking his time has come, spreads his arms and closes his eyes, but not a single arrow hits him. Rheus gallops into the fray to slay Hercules, but the hero dives under his horse and throws it over himself.
Centaurs.
The battle ends before it has ever begun, and Rheus and the other prisoners are led through the streets of the capital. They are mocked and people throw garbage and stones at them. Hercules interrupts the humiliation, and Rheus tells him that the hero is fighting on the tyrant's side, and that he himself has not committed the crimes attributed to him. A feast is held, at which Rheus, shackled in chains, is exhibited for the amusement of the guests. Erginia takes pity on him and tries to bring him water, but Cotys does not let her. The king is wearing a crown and chanting, "One land, one king, one Thrace."
Thrace is not a man, a king, or a god. Thrace is her people.
Hercules notices the way Erginia looks at Reyes and catches up with her on the way out of the hall. It turns out that Cody's not only started the war himself in order to gain full control of the kingdom, but also poisoned Erginia's husband as a competitor. Reyes, on the other hand, gathered the people displeased by the atrocities and tried to stop the tyrant. Now, the only heir to the throne is Arius, and Cody threatens his daughter with killing him as well. Erginia asks Hercules to leave and take the boy with him, but he refuses. Hercules goes to Cody's, whom he accuses of betrayal. The old man does not repent of his actions, and instead offers the hero to lead an army that will continue his conquest campaigns. Hercules, of course, refuses, and then Cody calls him a child killer. The situation heats up, but his friends stop the enraged hero. The team receives their gold and prepares to depart, but Hercules wishes to stay and fix his wrongdoings. Autolycus declines going on the suicide mission and leaves his friends, while the others agree to follow Hercules to the end. For Iolaus, it is also a matter of principle.
I must stop telling their stories. Started living my own.
General Siticles, however, turns out to be ready for their attack, and the heroes are quickly captured, along with Erginia and Arius. Hercules is chained to a cliff, and his friends are locked in cells. He sees Cerberus before him again, who turns out to be 3 vicious wolves. An old acquaintance appears, King Eurystheus, who has made a pact with Codes. The sight of the wolves brings back the hero's memory. He saw them the night his family was killed. He is innocent. The soulless Eurystheus drugged Hercules and set him up because he saw him as a threat when his subjects shouted the hero's name louder than the king's. Yet Hercules didn't want to take his place either.
I can deal with an ambitious man, he can be bought, but a man who wants nothing has no price.
To make matters worse, Codes orders the execution of Erginia right here in the dungeon, to the frightened cries of the girl, cursing her father, and Amphiara's call to remember who he is. Hercules finds the strength to tear out the chains and kill the executioner with a boulder. The wolves are brought down on him, which he defeats with his bare hands, finishing off the last one with the tooth of the Nemean lion, which Arius secretly returned to him during his captivity. As he makes his way through the dungeon with the help of his friends and Rhesus, Amphiaraus is targeted by a guard who throws a fiery spear at him. The seer prepares to accept his fate, but Hercules intervenes and sends the deadly weapon back, almost upsetting his friend, who had already said goodbye to his earthly existence. The hero catches up to Eurystheus. The man tries to use every possible promise and manipulation of words to stay alive, but Hercules can no longer be stopped. After avenging the villain, Hercules loses his guard for a moment, and Siticles sneaks up behind him and throws a noose around his neck. The general draws his weapon, but Iolaus is close by and saves his uncle just in time. The final battle takes place outside the palace, where Cody stands before his soldiers. He leads Arius out, threatening to kill him if Hercules does not surrender. The soldier holds a knife to the boy's neck, but is killed by a blade thrown by Autolycus, who rejoins the team. Arius runs to his mother under a barrage of arrows. Titus covers the boy with his body, and an arrow pierces him. He continues to fight, but falls from his wounds. Before his death, he does say his first and last word.
Hercules.
The heroes block the Thracian army with burning oil, and this gives Hercules time to push the statue of Hera off the temple steps. The statue's enormous body parts knock the soldiers down, turning them to flight.
Filthy bastard!
The king experiences the wrath of the goddess, flying into the abyss, while the surviving warriors lay down their weapons and bow to Hercules, chanting his name. Amphiaraus concludes, it does not matter if Hercules is the son of God, for the important thing is that he believed he could become a hero, and so he did become one. And the seer himself should have died a long time ago, so we must not blindly believe in fate. As always, you'll find the name of the movie in the description of the video. Let us know in the comments. Did you like this reading of the famous hero story, or do you prefer the traditional myths? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give this video a like, so that more awesome plots come out as often as possible.